2019's Ready or Not ended with a woman in a torn wedding dress covered in blood and laughing as the system that wanted her dead burned down around her. 2026's sequel took that image and turned her into a future collectible G.I. Joe doll with bleach blonde hair. That shift from survivor to seasoned badass isn't just a character change. It's the entire reason lightning did not strike twice with this sequel. The original movie understood something the sequel failed to grasp. The villain in this story is not a monster, it's a metaphor. When you lose that metaphor, you lose everything. Today we're going to take a look at the way Ready or Not 2 decided to choose lore over true meaning, and why shifting from a single family to a secret international organization doesn't expand the story world, it actually just dilutes the entire meaning of the first film. This is not about whether or not the sequel is bad, it's about why some movies are perfect bolts of lightning that do not need to be replicated. So, stick around, because this video might change the way you view legacy sequels from here on in. There are horror films you enjoy, and then there are horror films that feel like they were made specifically for you. Ready or Not was the latter for me. It wasn't just a good time at the movies, it was a perfectly constructed piece of pop culture commentary that wore a wedding dress and carried a vintage rifle. Its sequel wore the dress, but it forgot how to fire the gun. The brilliance of Ready or Not wasn't its plot, which was a beautifully simple survive the night premise. The brilliance was that the Ladomus family weren't just Satanists. They were a satirical embodiment of inherited wealth as a death cult. The game wasn't just a ritual, it was the ultimate prenuptial agreement. To marry into the top 1% is to literally sign a contract saying your mind and your body becomes their property to be hunted and destroyed. The monster in this movie is the metaphor. Grace was a protagonist, not some virginal final girl archetype. She was a woman who had already survived the foster system, she was pragmatic and foul-mouthed, and her primary emotion wasn't terror. It was escalating, righteous fury. Samara Weaving played her not as a victim finding strength, but as a dormant volcano of "I've had enough" finally erupting. Her scream at the end isn't one of defeat, it's a primal, exhausted laugh of disbelief. And that is the core of the film's catharsis. The first film was a masterclass in tone. It knew exactly when to be funny with the crossbow mishap, and when to be brutal with the body seller. The comedy came from the characters and not the director winking at the audience. And the family's incompetence was terrifying because they were so sincere and desperate. The horror lies in the fact real-life billionaires can also be lethal, bumbling idiots. And so, it seems blatantly obvious Part 2, Here I Come, had a clear mandate, and that was more. More lore, more family, more games, and even more satanic robes. But the more is precisely where the less started creeping in. The original's brilliance was its containment. It was a claustrophobic single-night siege. The sequel immediately expands the world, and in doing so, it dilutes the message. In the first film, the enemy was a family, a grotesque, hilarious, terrifying family who squabbled over their pool table while trying to kill their daughter-in-law. And their power was very specific. As a family, they had acquired vast wealth with a board game empire, and generational greed facilitated a deal with the devil that required them to kill Grace, who had just married into the family. In the sequel, the antagonistic force becomes an international, intergenerational network. And here's exactly why I think lightning did not strike twice with Part 2. The instant your villain shifts from a single family to a secret international organization, you lose the metaphor for inherited wealth. The Illuminati is a conspiracy theory, but the Ladomus family is a darkly comic, entirely plausible portrait of the way the ultra-rich might actually live. One approach is cartoonish, the other is pointed satire, and the sequel chose to go the way of Mickey Mouse. And this is the most painful miscalculation for fans of the first movie like me. Original Grace's arc was about surviving in spite of not being a fighter. Her victories were scrappy and desperate, and most importantly, believable. She won because she was more resilient and morally sane than her hunters. Here I Come turns her into a seasoned action hero 24 hours after part 1. The dread is completely gone. We are no longer watching a woman fight for a single more hour of life. We're watching an established badass running a gauntlet of set pieces. It fundamentally misunderstands why we rooted for Grace in the first place. We didn't want to see Grace become Sarah Connor. We loved her because she was not Sarah Connor. She was Grace, and Grace was more than enough. And what's worse, I knew 30 seconds into the sequel we were all in trouble. The movie opens with the subversive image from the ending of the first film. A broken woman in a torn wedding dress covered in blood, laughing as the system around her burns to the ground, which could have been a fantastic opener. But 10 minutes later, they took what should have been a physically, mentally, emotionally heartbroken young lady who just lost the love of her life with zero warning and through no fault of her own, which hurts a lot. Trust me. And with the snap of a finger, they made her into a franchise-ready action figure. It was a very safe decision, financially speaking, and safe is always fucking boring. In the crossbow scene, a maid accidentally gets her face obliterated. It is shocking and darkly hilarious, and then it is immediately grounding. The family's reaction, the "oh my god, you've killed the help," is funny because they're terrible people in a panic, not because the film made a joke. The sequel front-loads the comedy, the antagonists are more broadly written, the deaths are wackier, and the entire affair feels like it's wearing a "this is going to be a cult classic" t-shirt. The original movie earned its current status. In the sequel, it's just kind of asking you for it. And I think this is the problem with legacy horror sequels. They take the audience's love for a thing and try to sell it back to us repackaged. They mistake our ironic appreciation of a moment for a desire to have that moment parodied in the next installment. Now, for a moment of credit, Samara Weaving remains a magnetic, committed force of nature. She could read a tax code and make it feel like a cry for survival. And the dynamic with Kathryn Newton as Faith is a genuinely smart addition. Faith is a foil who represents the path not chosen, or the twisted mirror of family loyalty. And their performances are a real life raft for a script that is slowly taking on water. It's just a shame the raft is also floating on a sea of completely unnecessary lore. So, why did this happen? I think the writers and producers looked at the successes of the first film and they learned all the wrong lessons. They saw a violent bride and a game and a satanic ritual, but they missed the lesson that was right there on the surface. A perfectly contained metaphor about class powered by a relatable, non-superheroic protagonist, told with an airtight tonal confidence. They couldn't replicate the original container, so they expanded the lore, but the lore was never the point. No one left the theater asking, "I wonder if there are other families like this one." We left the theater asking, "What would I do to survive a system designed to destroy me?" The sequel asks, what if there were more of these families? And it's an answer to a question nobody was asking, delivered in a package that's admittedly kind of fun at times, but utterly non-essential. As I see it, this movie is the cinematic equivalent of a beautifully wrapped fruitcake. It's dense, it has a pleasant form, you've seen thousands of them in your lifetime, but you don't quite know why this one's in your fucking kitchen. I'm not great with drawing parallels. Now, you know that, so let's just move on. I am going to find you. That laugh is exactly what we lost, and it's everything. The first film ended on a note of pure, unexpected catharsis. The monster was dead, the metaphor was defeated, but the system was still burning. And Grace's laugh was a release of all the tension and the absurdity and all of her frustration. That ending resonated with a lot of us because it felt true. There's no laugh like that in the sequel. There is a moment of "here we go again" at the end, but that's just another sequel setup. The difference between those two seemingly subtle changes in the story symbolizes the big, gaping canyon between a genuine piece of art and a well-produced product. Ready or Not 2, Here I Come is not a bad movie. I am not saying that. It's competently shot, it's bloody, and it has its charms. But it's a shadow of the first film. It is a blueprint of it, built with flimsier materials, and it reminds me that some stories really are lightning in a jar. They're not repeatable, and they are beautiful in their own containment. The original Ready or Not movie matters to me because it had something to say, and it said it with a scream and a smile. But the sequel just wants the scream to be a little bit louder, and it's hoping we don't notice it's completely forgotten the joke, but I noticed. Maybe you noticed. So, if you've seen Ready or Not 2 already, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. I would also love to hear your thoughts on sequels that you think got it right. As always, thank you very much for watching my dumb little video. And until next time, folks,